Remember, the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason and plot. It's November the 5th and it's now 10 o'clock in the morning. So, good morning everybody, how are you? I hope you're all doing well. I'd rather a lot in the, on the discussion board. Let's start with the discussion board, shall we? Yes, there was rather a lot there today, and much of it was of a philosophical nature. You know, the both on this time and the last couple of times when I've asked these questions, these have kind of been the ones that provoked the most in the way of discussion, and it's to do with reductionism and holism. The Michelle, I'm sorry if I confused you. But there is a whole debate that goes on within both nursing and medicine about reductionism, and the idea seems to be that that it's easy to just focus on bits of people. It's easy to focus on symptoms, for instance, and attempt to treat symptoms without looking at the underlying cause, or that it's possible to look at the physical aspects of a condition without simultaneously taking into account its emotional and its spiritual aspects. And traditionally, this is what nurses certainly accuse doctors of having done. What nurses accuse doctors of is always applying something called the medical model. And what this model is said to represent is a tendency to regard everything as being a technical problem to fix, whereas nursing is said to be more holistic, and it doesn't regard people as technical problems. What it regards people as is a complex blend of spiritual, psychological, social, physical, a complex blend of influences. That's the general idea. And that nurses take a much more integrated view than doctors, who often can't wait to specialise and take a more reductionist view. I think that's the idea. I don't know whether the nurses in the group are going to say that that's a reasonable statement of the tendency in nurse thinking. But you all are on a course which is designed to look at one particular bit, which is designed to see the patient in terms of symptoms. Let's talk about the big one: intermittent claudication, pulselessness. These are very specialist observations, very specialist investigations, very specialist problems that a person will have. And what I wonder, therefore, is what that does to the nurse's claim. But I don't know whether this debate takes place in podiatry. But to the nurse's claim to take a more general, more integrated, more holistic view. Now, I gather, reading Michelle's contribution there, that that this is not a debate which is well exercised in podiatry. Why? Because she had to look up the very expression reductionism. And what's more, another reason why I think that this is not a debate that exercises podiatrists very much is that Michelle goes on to say, maybe we're not as holistic, maybe we are a bit reductionist, so what? You would not find a nurse who says that, I don't think, not unless this person had made a special study of it. In fact, I would argue that if you take a look further down and look at Karen's contribution in the discussion, podiatrists, take a little look at Karen's contribution there. I think you can detect in her contribution a note of irritation at the very idea that the hair care would be described as being less than entirely holistic. And that's because, to you nurses now, what I'm going to say is this. I suspect sometimes, I've never read anything on this and I've never written anything on this, but I suspect, first of all, that nobody realistically defends a position that says that all you should look at in a patient is their physical signs and symptoms, don't take any account of their social or psychological or spiritual aspects. I don't think anyone would defend that position. Yeah, I think that is always an idea that people ascribe to other people. That reductionist care is care given by somebody else who you don't like. That's what I think. Me, on the other hand, of course I give holistic care. And the reason why I suspect, I think, I might have said this last week, but I'm going to repeat it now. Sometimes I get the impression that when people talk about holistic, what they're talking about is good care, and they've just used a different expression for care that they consider to be good, It's not that has, and I find it almost impossible to define the concept with any sort of, any watertight definition. What on earth does holistic mean? I know it means good, and I know it means caring, and I know it means taking account of. But anyone should do that. That's not a particular view or ideology in nursing or medicine. That's just good care. It's not like a particular view of care, the way it's portrayed as being. I don't know. For the rest of the, so do I think, for instance, that being a specialist compromises the claim to be holistic? My answer to that would be, you tell me what holistic is, and I'll tell you if it compromises the claim. That would be my answer to that. I think you get as many different answers about what holism is as people you asked. And my guess is that unless it was a philosopher, you would not get any clinician anywhere to say my care is not holistic, because smuggled into the definition of holistic is the idea that it's good, and therefore if you said my care is not holistic, you would be saying my care is bad, and no one's going to say that. Anyway, I feel as though there is a debate raging among the podiatrists on the course on the question of lower limb assessment. You go for it. I didn't understand half of what it is that you were saying, but you go for it, podiatrists, and start swapping your own literature among yourselves as well. Nice one. Could not approve more. And as for you, Pat, nitric oxide and insulin resistance, do I understand the connection? Absolutely I do not. And don't start pointing the finger at me, Pat, because nitric oxide was only discovered in the 1990s. All this is still being rolled out. This is a very new development, and I bet you don't know the answers either. And you're dead right, Pat. This would represent a really interesting piece of research, and especially a really interesting essay. So get cracking, someone. Is there anything else? There was nothing, so far as I recall, in the email bag. So at 9 minutes 33 seconds, I'm going to call it a day and say see you next week.